All right, the big point of discussion yesterday, which we are working on diligently this week. When you say the word and for the upbeat of 3, that is when you move to the new chord, hit the upstroke. So really got to focus on having everything sync up there. Here we go. 60. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 4, 1, 2, and 4, 120. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 180. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeats. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 2. Got the slides back and forth. 60. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1. 120. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 180. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeats. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't like one of those slides. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Talking chords. Oh boy. So I'm going to go through the key of C. I'm just going to work through the whole thing. I'm going to go back to what we originally had, which is basically nothing. So yeah, we're going to have a bit of review along with the new chords. So starting with just your basic cowboy chord, open chord, whatever you want to call them. Just your basic chords. So chord number 1, C major. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is have the C add 9. So I add the 9x. So remember, when you go to add the 9, one of the first things you can do to make this easy is you look for an octave of the root note within that chord shape. So you have another C on the B string here. So we see by the mode information we have a 2. So that's the same as the 9, which is a whole step up from the root. So we just move up to the D note there. So that gives us a C add 9. Now, I want the 7th chord next. So we go back to the C chord. We look for that same octave. And now we're going to lower it to the 7. And using the mode information there to remind us what happens here, we see it's just a 7. The 7 is always a half step below the root note, so we just lower that C down to a B. So there's our C major 7. Now, we want to add, or basically combine it. So we want the 1, 3, 5, 7, and the 9. So if we go to the C add 9, and we choose to use that shape to build our major 9, we have to add in the 7. 7th note, remember, is the B. So there's really, when I'm looking at this, I think the easiest place to add in a B is going to be right there, 4th fret on the G string. Which does mean we don't have a G note anymore, but that's the 5th interval. And remember, the 5th interval is expendable. We don't always have to have a 5th interval. It still sounds like a C major 9 without it, so we don't have to have it there. So that's one option. But let's say you do want to have that 9, or the 5, I mean. You want to have all 5 intervals. So something else you can do, instead of using the C add 9 and then building the major 9 from that, maybe let's start with the 7th. So again, we can reference the C add 9 and see that we had that B, or the D note here. So instead of putting it back on the B string, because we need that B note, where's another place we can put the D note? Well, the D string. So we removed the E notes to get the D, but that's okay, because we have the high E string. So there we go. C major 9 that has all the intervals. I did that wrong. I put in a 2. There we go. C major 9. Okay. Now, here we have chord number 2, which is D minor. But that could be a problem. Major 9 has, well, 9th chords. Full 9th chords have 5 notes. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. This D minor chord has 4 strings. That could be a problem. So what we can do is use this one instead. This way we have 5 strings to work with. So I'm going to go with that. So, D minor, add 9. So one way we can do this is by taking that octave of the root note and moving it up to the 9. But I know an easier way, because that note right there, that's an E note. Well, we can just open up the high E string and have a D minor add 9 like that. So that's what I'm going to use. And we didn't lose any intervals doing that, because that A note is played down here. So we have 2 A notes being used, or 2 5th intervals being used. So there we go. D minor add 9. And it says that. That is ridiculous. Yeah, that's the second choice in Guitar Pro. There. D minor add 9. Alright. So now we want the 7th chord. So let's go back to this. Make it the 7th chord. So we see you got a flat 7th interval in our Dorian mode. So we find the octave of that root note, which is on the G string. We lower it down a whole step. So now we have our D minor 7. Now we need to combine the two in order to get our D minor 9. And looking at these two shapes here, well, let's just open up the high E string once again. So this way we combine those two shapes, and we have this. fantastic sounding chord. Really like that one. So it really is like a combination of the minor add 9 and the minor 7. And all 5 intervals are there. Now, problems we'd have doing it down here. So we can do the minor add 9. Well, not really, because trying to add in that octave right there, that's a huge pain in the butt, because look at that stretch. It's awful. But then you can say, well, why not just put it there, use the high E string for the E. Well, now we are missing the F note, which is the flat third, when we need that for the minor add 9. So you could end up doing some weird stretch like that. But that's not very fun. So it ends up being a mess trying to do these add 9s, the minor add 9, down here from that D minor chord shape. Minor 7 works fine, but the add 9 and the minor 9, it didn't work too well. Alright, chord number 3, get your E minor. So next we want the E minor add flat 9, because we're in the Phrygian mode, and we see here we have a flat seconds, so we need to add that in. So, pretty easy, just take that high E string, raise it up a half step for the F, and that will give us our E minor add flat 9. And now we need the E minor 7. So, again, the easiest way to do it, look for an octave of the root note we can lower. In this case, we need a flat 7, so it's got to go down a whole step. We have an E note on the D string, which will become a D. E minor 7. And now, just like the previous chord, or the previous bar, I should say, we are going to combine the E minor 7 and the E minor add flat 9. And there you go. Nice easy way of playing an E minor 7 flat 9. Man. Guitar Pro. So this one, the third option down in Guitar Pro is what we wanted. So yeah, some of these you might want to manually, or you might need to manually enter. Sometimes it pops up right, but when we get in these weird, or these big chords, sometimes Guitar Pro it'll have the suggestion that we want, but it's not going to be the top one. Some of them you just have to input manually. But anyway, all right. Lydian, chord number 4, F major. So now we want the add 9. So we could stretch way out there, but holy crap, is that a pain in the butt. So we need the G. So we could start by trying to do this, but then we lose the A notes. So then we can put the A note on the A string. And then that would means we have lost the C notes, but we could put the C note up here on the B string. But God, that's just a pain in the butt to hold. So let's just abandon that whole idea there and use what we did before with the add 9s and just do part of it. So we can also take the F note here, raise that up to the 9. So I'm just going to opt for this one, because again, we could try and do this, but that's a horrible stretch. And as we do these bigger chords, what we end up doing, and I'm going to be doing this with the F major 9 here, is we find the easiest place to put the new notes and then try and replace what was, or try and find a new place for what we just lost. So in other words, here, we go up like this, we're going from the F to the G. That's a terrible stretch, so let's try and put the G somewhere else. Easiest place for that is the G string. So that causes us to lose our A note, which is the major third, which we need for an F add 9. So technically, we could just do that, and we don't have the 5 anymore. But if we really want the 5, we got to put it over here on the B string, the C note. So we could do that. That's very uncomfortable. So, looking at it from another perspective, we can take this abbreviated chord shape, the F chord, which is still part of this chord right here. We're just looking at the top 4 strings. We can take this, raise the F on the high E string up to the G, and we got our F add 9. So that's the easy way of playing that, and that's what I'll typically do. Now we can go back to this chord for the major 7. This one's no problem. We take octave of the root note there on the D string, lower it down a half step because we want the major 7. We got that. Of course, if you took the other chord shape, basically that F major chord right there, you can do a similar thing and just lower the high E string down to the open E. Both are F major 7. One of them is just way easier to play. So next, we need to add in the 9. So it's going to be an F major 9. Now, again, we don't need the 5th interval, but I like to try and keep everything in as much as possible. So I'm going to take this, go into the F minor or F major 7, because we got enough strings to make this work. So once again, we are missing the G notes, and we're not going to play it on the high E string. We don't have enough fingers to make that possible, at least yet. Oh, not with this shape. So the easiest place to add in the G is, again, the G string. Now we got to move some fingers around to make this happen. So we open up the G string, and that causes us to lose the A note. The easiest place to add in the A note is the A string. And now we lost the C notes. So again, we're going to put this on the B string. So I'm going to move my fingers around like this. And there we have a full F major 9. So you could, if you really wanted to use the high E string, you could just play the open E. It's really difficult not to mute it. You can try and hold it like this. Not terrible. You can try and hold the G up here. Not that comfortable either. So I'm just going to use these 5 strings. Nice, well, very relaxing sounding chord. And there we have the F major 9. And hey, the chord name I wanted came up first. All right, Mixolydian, chord number 5, mode number 5. All right, so we got our G major chord to start. So G add 9. A is the 9. So going by what we've talked about, you could raise that G up to the A. That's not very comfortable. Maybe there's another thing we could do. What if we raised this G, the G string, up to an A? That works just fine. It also opens up the A string. So now we have 2 A's. So that works quite well like this. Or we could go even easier and just play it not quite like that, because without the B note, it's just a G suspended second. So this is one option. Well, actually, no, that's just a G suspended second there. Because when we do this and go to that, we lose the B note. So we can open up the B string and get it like this. That's one way of doing it, but that feels really awkward. But again, we opened up the A string when we went from this B note to here, so we can just open it up like this. Have 3, 0, 0, 0, 0, 3, and that's everything for a G add 9. So we're going to go with that. So now go back to our G chord. We need a G7, G dominant 7. So that's a flat 7 being added to the major triad, or the major chord. So we need to take our G note and go down a whole step to the F. So we can't lower the open G string. We're going to have to lower the G note on the E string down to F. So we could take this shape and then try and do this. But we don't have to hold the D note on the B string, so let's just open it up. So there we go. Looks like a C chord, but just kind of spread out. So we're going to go with that G7. Now, we want to add in the 9. Add that 9 back in, which is the A note. So we can do like a combination of the G add 9 and the G7. So just like before, we can open up the A string, and that's everything we need for a G dominant 9 or G9. So all 5 intervals are there. All right, Aeolian. Chord number 6, mode number 6. Start with the A minor chord. All right, so add 9 is next. So we're going to take the octave of the root notes in the chord shape, which is here on the G string, raise it up to a B note. Man, some of the add 9s come up right away. I don't know why this one wouldn't. I feel like that's a fairly popular chord, at least popular for interesting or exotic sounding ones. Anyway, now we're going to go back to the A minor chord, make the minor 7. So yes, minor 7, as we see in the mode information, we got the flat 7. So we got to take this octave of the A note here and lower it down to the G's. So that's a whole step down. There we go, A minor 7. So, got a little bit of a problem. We can't just merge those two shapes together like we've done with some of these previous chords, because, well, we had the 9 on the G string and then we used the flat 7 on the G string. So, kind of look at some things here. So we can start with this chord. And we got to ask, well, what was that flat 7? Flat 7 of A is the G. So we could put the G note right up here on the high E string. And you remember the 6th chords we did? Right here. That is your E minor flat 6 shape that we learned. We got that A in the bottom now. We have ourselves an A minor 9. So, really cool sounding chord. Now, what about the other chord? What if we used A minor 7 and tried to use that shape to create the A minor 9? So from here, we're missing the B note. Easiest place to put in the B is to open that up. That causes us to lose the C note. Well, where's another place we can play the C? We can't put it back on the B string. We could play it over here on the G string, which causes us to lose the G note, which we need in order for, like, we need that for the chord, because that's not expendable. Only the 5th interval is expendable. So we can put the G back on the high E string just like the other chord. And that's one way of doing it, like that. Not too comfortable, but that is an option. So it's kind of like, well, which one would you rather do? This one, I'm going to input that. And it's really the same voicing when you strum it the whole way through, or like how things are, because it's really just like swapping these two around. It's like you've taken the B note, moved it to the open B string, and you've taken this C note, moved it to the G string. But it's the same group of notes. It's just what kind of whichever way feels easiest to you, you can go with that. So that was built by adding going about adding this flat 7 to that. This one was built by by adding the 9 to that. So basically, I'm just trying to show you my way of thinking on how to create these things. Now, some stuff we'll end up doing, you might just have to do a complete rework because it just ends up being a huge pain in the butt. I mean, like basically your chord or your note names for an A minor 9, you got your A, C, E, G, B. So you can build these things any way you want. A, C, E, G, B. And then your high E string, that's part of the chord too. So A, C, E, G, B. There's the full chord right there. You play the E note again. That's all the intervals right there. So that's a really nice easy way of doing it. But that's not taking what we've worked on and like expanding upon it. Like, it's not really teaching you how to take something you do know and then altering it. But you can build it up any which way that you want. You can use that open A string there, and then even do something like this. There's your A, C, E, G, B. There's another way of playing an A minor 9. As long as you got the notes, you can stack them up any which way that you want. Anyway, last bar here. It's a long video. I might have to reuse this for other things. Got to take note of it. Because I can't imagine doing this every single time someone comes to ninth chords. Good lordy lord. Anyway, not that I'm complaining. I'm just saying this would be useful to recycle and reuse for other people to help out. Anyway, mode number 7, chord number 7, Locrian. We're going to have the B diminished chord. And the one we know and use has 4 strings. Uh-oh. Well, let's go with it. Let's see what happens. So, next we want the add 9. But we see in the mode information we have a flat 2. That means it's a flat 9. So we're going to take this B note, raise it up a half step, so this way we take the octave of the root note and raise it up to the flat 9. Well, this has a ridiculous chord name. It's close to it. B in parentheses flat 5 flat 9 no 3. Good lord. That's dumb. B diminished, add flat 9. It's like, I don't know why Guitar Pro wouldn't have that in its database. Because that's what the thing is. Anyway. So, now we go back to the B diminished. We want the 7th chord. We see we have a flat 7 being used. So again, we go to this note. And then lower it down a whole step for the flat 7. So that gives us a B half diminished 7, or, as we're going to be calling it, as we usually do, B minor 7 flat 5. And that's a very common way of spelling this type of chord out, and Guitar Pro doesn't have that in the database, which is so weird. Alright, so now we got another issue of you can't just combine those two chord shapes together to get our new chord. In this case, it'll be the minor 7 flat 5 flat 9. So we got to either change this or we need to change this. So if we go about it from this, we're missing the flat 7. Flat 7 is the A note. Well, we're not going to open this up because now we have lost our root note. So we're not going to change the bass notes. We're going to keep that as the B. B's got to stay there. No inversions right now. So we really don't have many places we can do anything. So I'm going to say this probably isn't the best shape to be fiddling around with. So let's maybe go back to this. So now we got the minor 7 flat 5. We need to add in that flat 9. Flat 9 is the C. Well, we can grab a C if we take this D note, lower it down, but that means we no longer have a D note. And remember, the 5th interval is the most expendable one. It's not expendable here because it's a flat 5. We have to have that to define the sound. So we lost the D note, we need to find the D again. So we can put it on the D string. But doing that means we lost our F. We need that F because that's the flat 5, we need it. We can put it on the high E string. So that means we're going to have to change some things around here. And we got that. It's basically a D minor 7 with a B for the root note. But that's the chord, that's everything. That's your root note. And then our flat 3rd is that D. The flat 5 is F, which is up here. The flat 7 is the A note, which is here. And the flat 9 is the C note, which is here. So some of these are going to require a bit of thought. If you want to write out all the notes, definitely, yeah, it's a good idea just to write them all out. Like, these are the notes being used for this chord. Put the interval numbers there as well if you'd like. Definitely, yeah, write things out to help. So, chord name. What does Guitar Pro give us? First option is F6 over B. I know you can't see this. D minor 7 over B, like I said. But it doesn't give us anything starting with the B. That's funny. Oh, yeah. Why Guitar Pro doesn't do that? Curious. I'm just hitting some notes here. We get that. Type. Weird. F minor 7. And then it doesn't show. Oh, here we go. Wow, it won't let me put that on. That's really weird. It won't let me add in a flat 9 to the thing. All right, weird. Anyway, B minor 7, flat 5, flat 9. That's our chord. So, watch this as many times as you need. Write down any questions you have as you're watching it, and send them on over. All right. I think that covers it. Good luck, and we'll work on this together for sure. And that's it. All right. Have a good week.